my name is Shalise. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I read in this first week of middle grade March. And let's explain what that is really quickly. Middle grade March is basically a month-long read-a-thon hosted by Krista from Books and Jams and Katie from Life Between Words or Life with Words or something like that. I don't quite remember. But anyway, the idea is just to read a bunch of middle grades, and they have like 5 challenges you can meet, and I'll try to remember to tell you what challenge that meets with these books. But really my whole purpose in this is just to read my shelves. I'm trying to read books just to kind of give my viewers, you guys, an idea of what there is out there to read, things that I maybe liked about them, maybe the things that I don't like are the things that you're looking for. So that's pretty much the idea with this, or things, even the reverse, things that I may be okay with, maybe you aren't. And so I had filmed this video and I did it. Right now my phone is on selfie mode, which means everything that you see is backwards. I tried to flip it around and film that way, but then my video had black strip on either side of it. So, yeah, that wasn't usable footage, and it was 30 minutes of unusable footage. So, unfortunately, you're just going to get backwards things until we can find whatever box has my chargeable or my battery charger thing. My brother kindly gave me his video camera, so now we'll soon be back to having good quality content videos, hopefully, in as so far as God wills. All right, so let's kind of talk about these books that I read. Again, this is just what I've read in the first week of March. I've been really trying to hit my shelves, kind of purge and go through and see what I want to maybe assign for reading later on. Anyway, we're just going to start with the top here because I've already been talking for a few minutes. We're going to start with The White Stag by Karen Sarady. Another challenge that I'm trying to do is read all of the Newbery winners. This one won the Newbery in 1937. And this basically kind of tells the story of Attila the Hun. And it actually starts with Attila's grandfather, and how the brothers came into the picture, and then one of the brothers basically meets a woman, falls in love with her, marries her, and the woman dies, and through that death, and that happened like, well, the father is arguing with like the god, Bendigo's. While Bendigo's, the father of Attila, is arguing with the god, and because of that, like, his wife isn't doing well, and she ends up dying, and then he becomes harsh, and he's going to prove to God that he can do whatever he darn well pleases. And so basically he raises Attila the Hun to be a fierce warrior, not be afraid of anything, blah, blah, blah. This was written in a folklore type of way because Kate Sarady was inspired to write this as a kid. She was reading her history books, and she mentions how very dry they were. And then she just had this short little paragraph about Attila the Hun, and she wanted to know more. And so she kind of wrote this based on the stories that were passed down. And there is, it was well done in the sense that you do get the idea that you're reading a story that's being passed down from the Huns' perspective, the Magyars, whatever, I can't say that word correctly, I'm sure. So you do get the idea that she is sharing their story as they've passed it down generation to generation. You also have biblical characters in here. You also have a well-balanced kind of story between fact of how these people came about, how they were kind of nomads for a while and how they got their land, their promised land. You have some of the folklore in the sense of what they believe and how things came about for them. And it was a really well balanced. I think I ended up giving this book 4 stars, which kind of surprised me because this is not the type of book that I particularly enjoy. I do like Greek mythology, and it had some of that feeling towards it, but it's not so much about the gods, which I think Greek mythology I personally like because I love how creative people get to basically explain how things came about. And they kind of brought that in here through this white stag that basically just kind of leads them. So in a little bit of that, you kind of, I don't know, I got a little nostalgic thinking of Krista and Dr. McNeil's White Buck retelling. So in a sense, this kind of, I think, helped those star ratings, but in another way, it again just is a living historical book kind of meshed with some of their folklore. So I don't know if that's a very good and accurate review to give to you, but that's kind of what I think. Is this going to stay on my shelf? Let's kind of jump to that. Yes, I will probably actually assign it. I think we've already passed Attila the Hun in our Story of the World, but I don't honestly remember, but I'm pretty sure we have. Anyway, I thought it would be kind of neat to kind of reread it out loud. It is more of a older type of book, so maybe I won't read it out loud, or if I do, it'll be between my 2 older ones. I don't think it's the kind of one that I would assign my younger readers. And I am sharing these in no particular order that I've read. Okay, let's start with this one. This one is The Kite Fighters by one of my favorite authors, Linda Sue Park. So far, I have not read anything I dislike by her. She wrote this book, and it tells the story of 2 brothers that you have the oldest brother who's kind of the favored male child, and then you have the one that's always basically trying to live up to that, to make his father realize that he's in the picture too. He's just as good. He can do this. And he's kind of impetuous. He's very do now, think later, whereas his brother is more methodic and contemplative. And his brother puts details into kites, whereas the older brother, whereas the younger brother, let's try to get the younger brother is Young Soup, and then the older brother is Key Soup or Key Sup. Anyway, the younger brother, Young Sup, tends to he knows how to basically work the kite, and so he's really good at that. However, Key Soup, the older brother, because of his meticulous eye for detail, tends to create masterpiece kites. And these boys are flying their kites when the king sees them from afar, and the king is a young boy about their age, and he too wants a kite, and so he has told Key Soup to make him one. And Young Soup and the king tend to just kind of play back and forth. And so it doesn't sound like a really deep and a deep story, but you do get the culture of this time, which is in the 1400s or late 1400s, and you get this time period, and you kind of get the surrounding feel of how merchants work, and how the king worked, and how the palace worked, and how these ceremonies worked. The ceremony, I believe, for the New Year, and it's basically their kite fighting tradition, and it's brought into it. What I really liked about it is that you do have some sibling rivalry, but deeper within that is a sibling relationship that just grows deeper, and I really enjoyed that. So this one, I think I ended up giving 5 stars, and highly recommend that. Okay, Year of the Dog by Grace Lynn. It was okay. This is kind of like a memoir type of book. Grace Lynn tells the story of her as a girl being from Taiwan, trying to fit into an American school, being pretty much the only different one, until she ends up with a friend that's just like her. The story opens up with the Chinese New Year. Yes, the Chinese New Year, and it's the year of the dog, which means loyalty, friendships, prosperity, you name it. And that's kind of what's in store for Grace Lynn this year. And it was interesting to me that Grace had all of these, basically, she already had all of them. She did have a friend, it just wasn't a friend that looked like her. And she had her friend introduce her to this new girl in school that looked like her, another one from Taiwan. And then that's pretty much all we hear of Grace and her original friend, for lack of a better word. We don't really see them connecting anymore. And I thought that was kind of unfortunate that we found someone that looked like us and now we're going to be friends. And don't get me wrong, like, I understand, here I am, white thing, which I'm sorry, I'm not ashamed of. I'm made the way I am. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And I don't know, it just seems like there's this big emphasis on having friends our own age, having friends of different backgrounds and different cultures and different things, and yet it's almost like that's only for us white people to have, and it's different for other people, and I don't know, it does seem to be more common within books to have that mindset. So I don't know, maybe I won't even put this part in the video, but I just it kind of bugged me on that, because that friend isn't in the picture anymore. And then the rest of the story is about Grace and her new friend. And her new friend has like a very health nut type of mother. And so they kind of have some episodes. And then throughout the book, another big part of this book is you get an idea of the culture that Grace Lynn's mom had through retelling of stories that happened. And she'll go, have I ever told you the time? And then she'll bring up something that happened as she was growing up within a different country. Or Grace Lynn will tell about a different time that happened with her. Grace has a difficult time just in kind of trying to fit in her own shoes. And then there's this play for The Wizard of Oz, and she doesn't even try out for Dorothy because she doesn't even look like Dorothy. And she ends up being, I think it starts with an M, I don't remember. And ends up, nailing or presenting Dorothy with a gift, and that makes everybody happy, and she's all happy again. It was just an okay story. I mean, all of that to say, like, there wasn't anything deep within this. It's all about the year of prosperity and good fortune, and finding out how that is going to happen to her. She ends up writing a book for a contest. She ends up entering in a science fair, and just kind of her school life. I'm going to go back. This kind of fits within in that one Middle Grade March reading challenges of reading about a different, someone in a different country. This kind of fits that too, in the sense that you get a lot of the mom flashbacks, but she is in America. But there are stories in here like B is for Betsy, which my daughter and I are actually reading right now, along with Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, and another book that I can't remember what she and her friend are reading, but they're reading another book, so it fits within books within books. So that's going to be the review for that. It was a 2-star read. I didn't think it was that great. It was okay. I mean, it's not something that I wouldn't let my kids read. I would be fine with them reading it. It just wasn't like, of all the books to read, go ahead and read that. There's just so many. But let's talk about Noras Song, which is the next one that I read by Patricia Riley Riley Giff or Jiff. Let's not open that box of worms. This is about, sorry guys, I have a migraine today, so whatever I can to get a little bit of relief. This is about the potato blight that happened in the mid-1800s in Ireland. And Nori Ryan and her family, they live in poverty circumstances. Their dad is off fishing, trying to get enough money to pay rent. They're living in these dire circumstances, watching friends being kicked out of their homes for not being able to pay the rent. So these English landlords can basically wipe out as many of these poor people as they can. So basically they can take the land and farm it for their sheep. And so this book is a hard book to read. It is not, I'm not going to say it's not depressing, because in a way it is, but it's not without its hope. And Nori Ryan's song, this girl Nori, uses her songs to basically kind of lift up the hearts. And then she sees her sister go off to America to try to better her life with her husband. Nori Ryan, I don't even remember how old she is, but she and another boy within this book are talking about being married one day. It's all very sweet and innocent. I don't even remember kissing or anything, just the talk that they're one day going to be married and do this. Nori also has a younger brother and a grandfather and someone else in the picture. Maybe another sister. Or maybe that was the sister Maggie. No, there's another sister. Anyway. And then there's an old woman that basically Nori ends up going to work for because she borrows the coin to try to save a family and then ends up losing the coin, and so she still has to pay the coin back. Okay, so this story again is pretty much about the potato blight, which basically meant there was something in the ground that just wiped out the potatoes, that turned them into this disgusting mush, some kind of disease. And it was really good to see that no matter how hard our circumstances are, we still have it so much better than being thankful to be able to eat a potato for dinner. Like I truly cannot imagine. And then just unwinding your shawl so that you can re-knit it and try to salvage what you can. And I don't know, just, it's not an easy read. It is definitely one worth reading. I do think we should all read this and then be thankful for the circumstances God puts us in. I mean, the fact that we can pick up a book and read it is something to be seriously thankful for. So this one I think ended up with 5 stars. What I ended up doing was going to the library and getting books 2 and 3 to finish it out, but you don't really need it. You kind of get that hope at the end that kind of gives a good satisfying end. But I want to read the 2nd and 3rd, and then I found a couple other ones that she wrote, so I picked them up. I remember her writing Lily's Crossing that I read as a kid, but I don't even remember that one. Okay, but let's keep going because we're already at 20 minutes. Oh my goodness, I can talk forever about books. This one is Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. This would also take place in a different country. It takes place in Ireland. This is another Newbery winner, Lois Lowry, Number the Stars. I'm pretty sure that everybody here has probably read it. I actually have never read it. I just knew that it was on a lot of the recommended lists. It's Newbery. A lot of people, I think, read it for World War II. It's more of a gentle approach to it, so I think that's why it's more commonly used. And Lois Lowry is a terrific writer. In this book, you have Anna Marie, who's 10 years old, learning to live cautiously in Nazi-occupied Denmark. And her best friend is a Jew. And it comes to a point where you've learned to live cautiously to learn to live in a scary time. And it comes to happen that they have to hide her best friend as being a Jew, and kind of her dealings with that, and trying to, being 10 years old, I still just try to comprehend life through a 10-year-old, realizing that your words could either save your best friend or send them to their doom, and probably not just them, but your whole family as well. And again, it was done in a very gentle way. I'm trying to remember anything that might be for sensitive readers. I really don't remember any. I think this is a good one to approach the subject with more sensitive readers. But it was a beautiful story of this girl, Anna Marie, just dealing with this, dealing with Nazi, and it wasn't just page after page of terror. Like, there was hope and happiness in it. So they're still living their lives, but in a different way. And so I thought that it was really well done, and I really liked it. My daughter, I assigned it to my daughter to read, and she was finally thankful that I finally read this book. Or she was thankful that I finally read that book, and yeah, it was really good. And I will probably give it to my other daughter to read. I don't think my sons will be totally into that. But that's okay, there's other books. This one is Richard Peck, who wrote A Year Down Yonder and A Long Way from Chicago. And this one is Fair Weather, which I haven't really seen anybody talk about Richard Peck doing this. This is about the Chicago's World Fair, or actually it had another name, which was the World Columbian Exposition. And the Chicago's World Fair, in my limited reading of it, is usually told from a like a city perspective, like people that have been there. This is more told from a country's perspective, where this family goes there that basically lives out in the country and are up at dark 30 to take care of the farm. And here they go to the city, and it's like they're put in the middle of a completely foreign country to them. There's electric lights everywhere. There is noise everywhere. There is crowds everywhere. And you, being a kind of introvert, like I was already having a panic attack just for them. I don't like fairs. And so I can imagine wanting to see this new exhibition to understand what everybody is talking about, especially the Ferris wheel. But still that overwhelming sense of, where am I? What is this? And Richard Peck did a brilliant way of writing that for everyone to experience it through those eyes of never having seen electric lights everywhere, to the fear of crowds everywhere, that you're going to lose someone, or that you might see something scandalous, as the aunt kind of tries to shelter them from all of that. And just then you've got the classes in there. The aunt that they go to stay with in order to see this fair, she is not quite at the high level class. She's not quite at the low level class. She's kind of in between, and she ends up going to live in a motel after this. It was really interested in a children's book to kind of show how this time period worked, and it was really well done. It was a really fascinating book. I think I ended up giving it 5 stars because it was really well done. Okay, So Year of the Dog was kind of a flop. The other flop this week was The Boy, the Bird, and the Coffin Maker. Okay, so the Coffin Maker is kind of the main character of the opening story. He was originally a toy maker, and then all of his kids died in this epidemic that happened. Like, everybody got purple neck or something like that, purple splotches on their neck. And then they all died one by one. And so he turns from being a toy maker to a coffin maker, because you still work with wood and blah, blah, blah. Well, he is making a coffin for this woman that comes into, a woman that comes into his morgue or house, being found dead. Nobody really knows who she is. She lives quietly up on the hill. The coffin maker realizes that her body is still warm. And at this point, I've kind of figured out what's going to happen. However, this is where it got a little too weird for me. He ends up laying down next to her so she won't be alone before she's buried, because she's warm. That was a little too weird for me. Then the coffin maker starts losing, or his food goes missing. And he ends up seeing this little boy. And he ends up befriending this little boy and gaining his trust. And it turns out the little boy is the boy to the woman that was buried. But this boy has a deep, dark secret that he is not sharing. And this is where the fairy tale type thing comes in. It's kind of like a Grimm's fairy tale. The deep, dark secret is one that I just didn't like. I didn't like where the author went with that. Because it is a mystery, I'm not sure I can share it accurately, but I wish that there could have been something else in that. And so that kind of brought down the stars for me. It was interestingly written. I think that the writer has potential to write some really good books, and I would like to know what else she writes. But this one probably is not my favorite by her. People that are okay with probably like the fantasy type books, like I don't remember anything bad in here, again, other than that coffin maker laying down with the dead woman just to keep her comfortable, or so she wouldn't be alone. That was just a little weird, but I don't remember anything else. I mean, you've got fish flying out of the sea. It's a fantastical place, but I don't remember anything that would be objectionable if you're okay with fantasy. So it's or magical realism, maybe is what I should say. Anyway, let's kind of move on to that. Let's talk about The Changeling. This is by Christina Suntornvat. I think she's only written another book, which is book 2 in this. I think this was also her debut novel. Yes, this was her debut novel. Okay, so this one started out, and I did not think I was going to like it. It starts out with 2 sisters that have just moved to a new town. They're fighting, they're bickering, they don't like each other, they're at each other's throats. The older one, whose name is Izzy, Izzy and Hen are the 2 sisters. Izzy kind of has some sass towards her mom, ends up lying to her. Just nothing that I kind of was like, okay, I'm probably not going to like this. And then you have a lot more fairy tale type things within this book. This book is just, you can tell the author was inspired by fairy tales and good classics like Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. Those 3 I definitely saw in here. There might be more. But the older girl, Izzy, ends up, her and her sister hear this flute music. And this is after they have been spying on their neighbor, which they think is a witch. they hear the music, and Hen, the younger sister, goes rushing after the music and into the woods that is kind of off limits. The older sister tries to find her, ends up running into the witch, who, when she learns about the music, gets scared, says, "Stay here, I'm going to go get your sister." And the Izzy does not obey and goes after to try to figure out what happened to her sister. Then they end up in a different world. She goes down a burrow, down a hole, and ends up in a different world. And you find out that later on, through different circumstances, there's like an evil queen. There's what they call the changelings, and the changelings are children that have been swapped with human children. So these have the power to change into something else, only as long as they can, like, their dominant personality allows them to change into certain things. Something like that. Anyway, so now you're in this other world trying to find your sister, trying to get your sister and get back home into your own world, and then you have multiple adventures. And you end up with these 3 changelings that are going to help her get to the palace, find out what happened to the other changelings, and rescue your sister, stop the evil queen from taking over the kingdom, and have more mystery revealed to you. So again, I started out thinking this is not a book that I'm going to like. I ended up giving it 4 stars. After she decided to go after her sister, the book got pretty good. She realizes how bossy she's been, how wrong she's been, how her sister just is younger and after it, and just tries to reunite herself with her sister and get back to, to their mom and dad. And so it ended up being a 4-star read. It was really good. I don't know if I will get the second one. There's a book 2, but this had a very satisfying ending and it was fun. And I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. If you're okay with Harry Potter, you'll be okay with this book. No problem. Anyway, it was definitely fun. One of those ones that I just picked up. Again, I didn't like the opening. I wish we could figure out a way to let these authors know we don't have to have that. You can have real children without that. Maybe I'm unique in this. So anyway, that's going to be the stock of books that I read this first week. Again, just trying to read my shelves and kind of go through all of those and just kind of weed out things that I don't really think need to take up place on my shelf. So within this whole stack of books, only 2 are departing from our house. And that is just going to be The Year of the Dog, The Boy, the Bird, and The Coffin Maker. Again, mainly The Year of the Dog. I wouldn't mind them reading that, but it's one we can get at the library. It's not one that I'm going to keep on my shelves. There's nothing wrong with it. The Bird, The Boy, the Bird, and The Coffin Maker, I don't really see any of my kids really enjoying that, so I'm not going to not going to keep it on. Just, there's plenty of books here that we can read. And we will be keeping these. I really do think my daughter will enjoy this. And then we'll probably just pass it along. I don't really see my boys enjoying that. And there will be other books by the time the other daughter is ready to read it. So we'll probably read and pass that one along too. But these for sure, really enjoyed. Even this one I might read and pass along. But yeah, I think these were pretty good. I wouldn't mind keeping them on my shelves. Actually, I'll probably end up keeping that on my shelves in case I have grandchildren that want to do that. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this video with these book reviews for all the books that I read this past week. That is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books in 1 week for middle grade March. They take me generally about 2 hours to read. I think the Changelings took me a little bit longer just because it's a little bit thicker. And for those that are wondering, like, how do you find time to read like that? Well, I did do a video and I will leave that link down below, but also I've been getting up a little bit earlier and going to bed a little bit later just so I can do this and weed out those books on my shelves and just try to make room for what I really love and enjoy. So, thank you so much for watching this video. Go ahead and stay tuned. And at the end of this next week, I will share with you what else I have read. I don't intend the stack to be as big as it was this week, just because that was really hard to knock out all those. Anyway, but until next time, have another cup of coffee. Actually, we're reading middle grade. Let's do another cup of hot chocolate and read another chapter. Thank you for watching.